Well, it was in my childhood days, oh, Lord, many long years ago. Now with the Spirit, now of my Savior, I was filled, Lord, filled, oh, in that old fashioned meeting. Oh, Lord, our memories, they linger still in that little, oh, that wooden church house out on a hill.
My full name is Henry Lincoln Rutherford. I was born in Bullock County on the 9th, the 20th, and the 20th.
The family prayer, then to that old country wagon.
My full name, P.T., initial names only, last name, Armstrong. I was born in the state of Texas, county of Navarre County. I was born in 1927, March 17, 1927.
That little, oh, that wooden church house.
My full name is David F. Richards, Jr. I was born March the 19th, 1929, in Sedalia, Missouri.
Oh, Lord, give out the me to him. Then every heartbreak now with the Holy Ghost. Oh, would feel, oh Lord, oh, would feel. Well, people, they would be shouting, praise my God, I hear them still in that little, oh, that one church house out on a hill.
My daddy's name was John Henry Rutherford. My mother was named Courtney Wheeler. Then they married to that union. There were 16 children born, but 4 of them passed before my time. So they raised 12. Out of the 12, 7 of them still living today. My family and I, we attend the church together. That's what we were brought up in, holiness. There's only 2 ways, hell or heaven. That's it. And my family taught us the godly way, the heaven way. It's in me today, at 95. Don't hate nobody. We got to wake up and smell the roses. When we die, there were 2 destinations. You're going to one of them. And you prepare down here in this present world to go to heaven. You don't have to prepare to go to hell. You automatically go if you don't go to heaven, period.
My mom and dad, they were sharecroppers. And my mom died when I was 5. My religion is Baptist. Some people call it Protestant. My father was a deacon in church, and the type of church, the Baptist church at that time was what you call fire and brimstone type. Believe it or not, I played the piano as a young boy, 9 and 10 years old in church. That the only music they had was me. We were very, very religious. Not, we went to church. I was in church just about every day of the week almost. but I enjoyed doing it, and I still have that belief that my parents taught me when I was young.
I grew up in a loving environment. My parents were Christians. They never heard them in a confrontation growing up. There was always love and trust and respect that we were taught. And so I didn't grow up under those conditions of where there was miscontent within the family. I never heard them into any arguments or nothing like this here. They might have had it, but it was not discussed between them before my sister and I. And so that was a building block that I have always admired from my father and my mother, the respect that they had for each other. And when he passed, they had been married for 63 years.
Mostly at nightclubs and cafes. I was well known at the time. Married women and single women. They did. Just like a lot of times I used to have these girls out at night. I said, "There's no stars out tonight." How you know? They're not glitter in your eyes, sweetheart.
We had what you call a hoedown, and the hoedown, that's where we did a lot of dancing, and that's when you really worked out with the young girls, and you had a lot of fun. And that was during the time of dating. And like I stated before, everything was not gloom and mean. We had a lot of fun.
I met my wife when I was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And she and one of her girlfriends were coming through Fort Bragg, and I struck up a conversation with them at the NCO club. And I don't know, through our conversation, I said, "Well, why don't I call you sometime?" And I didn't have any paper or nothing like this here, so the fellow gave me a piece of brown paper. And so she wrote her name and phone number on that, and I said, "Well, will it be all right if I give you a call?" And she says, "Yes, well, you know, being a school teacher, I guess she figured that, well, I won't hear no more of this." And so later on in the week, I did call. And from that, it just went on and went on. And right now, I tell the fellas to be careful about what you write on a piece of brown paper, because I'm the recipient of 57 years of marriage.
Well, my husband had came at the service, and he wanted to finish his he didn't completely finish high school. So after he came out the service, he went to beach to finish up his education. And he had met my brother-in-law before he meet me, and he didn't know nobody that much here, so he asked my brother-in-law invited him to come by the house, and so he came by the house one afternoon on his way to school, and that's how I met him.
Just that simple.
I met my first wife in the year of 1945. See, my parents had a home down here. And my first wife, she fell in love with my family, my sister. Her name, her picture right now, her name was Louise Lawson. And so I met her parents, because see, I wasn't ashamed. Her daddy the man who raised her was he was a preacher. So one night he was preaching down here at the church, down here at Sandia. So that night when he got through preaching, he walked up there to catch the bus to come to Riceboro. He used to catch the bus to come to Riceboro. Then I walk up to him and I said, "How you doing, Rev?" "Hey, son." He's a big, tall guy. "Who are you?" I told him who am I. And I said, "You know the Rutherford?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Those are nice people. Are you saved?" I said, "No, sir." "Why?" "I'm not doing like the Bible says. The day you hear my voice, harden not your heart." I said, "I hadn't did it." "Well, Rev," I said, "Rev, I met your daughter the other day, and we seem to be very much in love. Do you have any objection to me coming to see her?" He called, "You the first boy ever asked about that big-haired daughter of mine." So he said, "Well, you come to the house and see Miss Lawson." So I came, I was here. The house used to be right here, wooden house. Right here, wooden house building. So that Friday night, I was here. So he said to his wife, he always called his wife Miss Lawson. "Miss Lawson, this young man asked us about our daughter. Where's she at?" But she said she had a fine voice. She said, "Well, oh, I know, you got a nice family." So he called his daughter. "Louise, come out of there." She was back in the room. "You done made this young man come ask you." Louise come walking out. Boy, she looked like a little Cuban doll. I loved that girl, that picture right there. I loved that girl, God knows. 57 years. She died in this arm right here, that same woman, after 57 years.
I love my country, indeed I do, but oh, that war has made me blue. I like fighting, that's my name, but fighting am the least.
I was drafted in 1942. Then, after I got the letter of drafting, they gave me 10 days to go to Fort Benning, Georgia. So I go to Fort Benning. When they got through going through my process, the one who didn't pass, they had them stand aside. And the one who passed, they all stand over there. During that time, they had them old big mouth sergeants. "Okay, the crew over here, you had it. Crew over here, going back. Uncle Sam don't want you. You no good." So the one who they accept, they sent me back to Savannah, 15 days to get my house in order. I did my basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Coldest place, January, February, March. Oh, it was cold. I was up there where those James brothers used to roam, Frank and Jesse, in North Mountain. That was cold. When I went on, they, had to go out on guard duty. I went out on guard duty. You stay 2 hours at the time. I stood in one place for 2 hours. When I moved out, snow had done come up to my knees. I stood there and looked up and said, "Lord, please take me, Lord." I did. Oh, it was cold. January, February, March, and April, then the news comes to, "Well, we're going to ship you out." Colesville, England. They had black nights to go to town. and had white night to go to town. I never forget. Right here out of South Carolina, I'm a white boy. So when the black went to town that night, there was soldiers from South Carolina. My friend, his name was George Summon. He was from something, South Carolina. So this white soldier made some remark, and I said, George, that SOB ain't worth killing. So George down there had them knock his teeth out, eyes shut up. I said, George, that SOB ain't worth dying. Let him go, let him go. So George, he laying down there. By God, did you kill me? You still a nigga. It was in him. He's drilling in him. See what I mean? Don't let nobody fool y'all. It tickled me. On Black Night, what those girls used to do, they'll board them old double-deck bus and come out to the black camp. And my girlfriend would be on there. When I take her back into Darby, England, she used to live way out on London Drive. I used to walk her home. I met that 82nd Airborne. Oh, hell, go a black boy, let's kill this. You know who saved? A second white lieutenant. Let that soldier alone. He over here just like y'all live. I said, let him alone. It scared me. Boy, my heart was beating, so I was thinking, not coming the button off my shirt. That's the goddamn truth.
Colored soldiers, that we were called back in those days. But we were still segregated. We could not eat in certain places. We could not use certain facilities, even though we was serving in the military along with all the rest of us Americans. We were still second-class citizens at the time. And here's a story that I can tell about that. We were raw recruits. We had never took any training for anything, but that's 1945, and we was put on detail to guard German POWs or prisoners of war. The most strange thing about that, when we were moving the prisoners of war, the prisoners from one place to another, especially on the bus, we as black soldiers or colored soldiers, we had rifles with no bullets in them, but we didn't realize that at the time. The only guy that had the bullets, then we sat in the back of the bus. The only person that had the bullets was the first lieutenant that sat behind the driver, facing the prisoners and us. He's the only one that had bullets in his .45 pistol. We didn't realize that we did not have any bullets in our weapons because we were raw recruits. We had to salute all of the German officers as if they were, because they was high-ranking military POWs.
I volunteered for service. I was born in March, and I graduated in May of the 24th, May the 24th, and on May the 28th, I was in service as a private 4 days after graduating for high school. My parents had to sign for me to go in. I was only 2 months being 17 years old. And so at that particular time, there was I think a more of a patriotic atmosphere. That it was still at the close of World War II, and there was a lot of emphasis on young people going into service. And I was wanting to follow my father's footsteps from World War I. Inequalities that I witnessed while in service made me stronger. Going through jump school that was the elite area there for people to go airborne. Had to volunteer to go through rigor school, and you'd have a time frame for that. We didn't have any Afro-American cadre. There might have been in some areas, but they weren't into my particular grouping. And you'd have a time frame for packing your parachute and things like this here. Your supervisor or else the cadre would see you doing something wrong and wait until it's almost time for the time to expire. Then they'd come up and tell you, well, this area, you missed this particular area. And so you'd have to tear that parachute down. So consequently, by the time that you would correct it, you had missed out on the time frame. So you'd get washed out. They would wash you out for various reasons, going through jump school. They didn't want you in the elite areas.
When I was growing up, like I said, I was born in 1927 during the Depression. Politics was not mentioned in our household because my parents could not vote. We were not allowed to vote at that time. And those that did, when they paid a poll tax, sometimes they was denied credit at the stores. So politics back in the days when I was coming up as a young boy or a young man was not mentioned until in the late 50s and 60s, early 60s. So my dad and before them, they were what you may call blackballed from buying produce from the stores in certain counties because some of them could read and write, and they had that $25 poll tax they had to pay at the time. Actually, it was only $12.50, but they doubled it up, they charged $25. I must say this, growing up in that particular area, and I'm not trying to make it sound real bad, but in certain cases, segregation was very, very rampant back in those days. The Jim Crow law was strictly obeyed. Black folks, as we are called now, were not able, in the little town where I grew up, we were not allowed to purchase Coca-Cola or a Dr. Pepper drink. We had to wait in line and let the white folks be served first, and those were the ugly parts of it.
My pastime has been devoted to things that will be uplifting for the youth. Joining organizations, which is the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, Civil Rights Museum, Martin Luther King Observance Committee, Mediation Board. One of the challenges that we have now is with the 100 Black Men of America, the Savannah chapter. We started that 20 years ago, and I'm one of the founding members of that, where we donate our time, and our thrust is for mentoring, education, health and wellness, and making sure that we keep the young men and women, it's open now to women, into the area there of those things that we so greatly need.
After I retired from Fort Stewart, I ran for city council in 1987. 87. And I served 22 years right here. I wouldn't offer myself again. Why? Give somebody else a chance. I condone people being in office for a lifetime. Give somebody else a chance to run. You don't know it all. One question I like to ask people, what's more important, being careful or being good? First thing they say, being careful. I said, no. You can be careful doing something wrong, but if you're doing good, you ain't going to do nothing wrong. It's just that simple.
The books that I have written is that I have published, I've only had 2 publishing. One is about myself, which is my memoirs, and the other one is Sometimes It's Beautiful, and then I have another one, fiction, based upon the culture back in the days when I was growing up, some Frank and Mrs. Cahill. I enjoy writing about things that had happened in my life, and also about current things that is happening even now.
I don't believe that the African American veterans have been able to receive the credit of what they have been able to accomplish due to the fact that when it was a segregated army or services, they weren't given the opportunity to perform in those areas that were more liking as far as combat.
I don't feel like African Americans get the recognition that they deserve. They don't. I've been there, I see it. You're in the same category the Black American soldier was. Same category. The motto of this country. If you're white, you're right. If you're black, you get back. That's it. I don't bite my tongue. I don't care who you are. President can come ask me. Queen Elizabeth can ask me. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm exactly who God wanted me to be.
We are not being treated as equal, but yet we fight in the same wars, and we are governed under the same government as everyone else. So why not give us the same recognition?